This has really been the most active week in the Eurozone crisis, literally in months. It started with an emergency summit in Berlin where Angela Merkel called sort of all the heads of the bailout creditors, including the head of the ECB, the head of the IMF, the head of the European Commission, all met in Berlin to knock heads together to basically come up with a common position that they were going to present to Alexis Tsipras as not their final offer, but certainly pretty darn close to that. That happened on Wednesday. Tsipras made very clear it was not something he was ready to accept. The talks were supposed to continue on Friday, but in the interim, everything blew up in Athens. The politics for Tsipras has gotten incredibly difficult, and he's been forced to stay in Athens and now address his parliament. One of the biggest surprises this week is Greece announced it was not going to meet its 300 million euro payment to the IMF due Friday. Now, this is allowed under IMF rules. They have about 4 payments due this month, and the IMF has said there's this rather obscure rule that says you can bundle your payments and pay them in a month, but the last country to do that was Zambia in the 1980s, so it is not seen as something developed countries do. And it also came after Christine Lagarde, the head of the IMF, and a whole bunch of other officials, including Alexis Tsipras, the Greek prime minister, had indicated they would make this payment. So the Greeks have acknowledged they actually have the money, so it's seen as kind of a bit of brinksmanship, a bit of defiance in the bailout talks because of a lot of the anger going on in Athens right now about the stance the creditors have taken, a particularly hard line on what Greece needs to do to get some bailout aid. Greece has insisted that some kind of debt relief be part of any deal they strike with their creditors. Now, the documents that have come out and leaked out over the last 24, 48 hours show that the creditors are coming to them with a plan that has no debt relief in it. The Greeks have countered with their plan of their own, saying, here's how we would like to restructure basically all publicly held debt. Greece wants a rather large restructuring to cut the Greek debt basically in half. Right now, there seems to be no prospect of that. I think what we're likely to see if a deal is reached is a vague promise that somewhere down the future we will revisit the issue of debt relief, which is likely to mean extending loan maturities. But other than that, we're not likely to get a hard commitment at this point, which may be very difficult for Tsipras to sell at home. Relations between Greece and its creditors have been pretty rough for 3 or 4 months. To be honest with you, the interesting thing is over the last 3 or 4 weeks, things started getting better. We saw progress in what's called the Brussels Group, which is sort of the negotiations on the technocratic level. We saw sort of more pragmatic members of the Greek government get involved in the negotiations, particularly Yanis Varoufakis, the finance minister, who has really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, was kind of sidelined in these talks. So interestingly, we saw sort of the more moderate elements in the Greek government get involved, including Tsipras himself. So this explosion at the end of the week, where sort of Greek politics went a little bit chaotic, where the Greeks decided not to make their payment to the IMF, that caught a lot of people by surprise because they thought things were getting better. So I wouldn't say that the Greek relations with the creditors are at an all-time low. As a matter of fact, the surprising thing is that they've been at an all-time high under this government, and that's why this week has been so surprising to everyone.